Wagon enthusiasts are a unique group. You see, you take all car enthusiasts, which is already a subset of car owners, and then you further divide it into people that are interested in wagons. And while it's a very small group of people, they are a very outspoken group and very enthusiastic. Now, even if you're not into wagons, what's cool about this V60 is there's kind of something for everyone. Let's talk about over 500 pound-feet of torque, all-wheel drive, and also Polestar bits for the suspension and brakes. It's a rather interesting car, so even if you're not into wagons, there might be something for you here. What we're going to be doing today is taking a look outside. Inside, I'm going to show you some of the features of this V60. We're also going to try and throw a bike in the back because after all, this is a wagon. And last but not least, we're going to take it on the road to see what it's like to drive. While I am a car enthusiast, I don't identify as being a wagon enthusiast. I think some of them are cool, but frankly, I can take or leave them. But even for me, as somebody who's not a diehard wagon fan, I think this is a fantastic looking vehicle. It does an excellent job of being sort of understated, but also stand out at the same time, and that's hard to do. Some of the German manufacturers can be pretty successful at that, but even the Swedes, being that this is a Volvo, have managed to do that. Now, of course, you could point towards the gold brake calipers or maybe just the blacked out bits around it, but you don't see a wagon that is very low like this with some athletic bits around it that often, and maybe that's why. So clearly I'm pretty big fan of the way this thing looks, but let me know what you think about the looks of the V60 Polestar in the comments below. Under the hood is where things get really interesting. That's even before we start talking about this complicated powertrain. Just take a moment to look at this hood and how high up it opens. I've actually never seen a hood that opens by default that high. And as someone who works on their own cars, I actually really appreciate that. Now, the good stuff. This is a 2-liter turbocharged gas engine paired with some batteries and electric motors. This is actually a plug-in hybrid, and it combines for 455 horsepower and 523 pound-feet of torque, a ton of power coming through this entire setup. Now, it also is paired with an 8-speed transmission, so thank God it doesn't have a CVT. The enthusiasts can rejoice on that front. It's also worth noting that if you're just going to drive this on electricity, you'll get about 41 miles of range just plugging it in. But if you do decide to drive it on gasoline alone, you'll get about 31 miles to the gallon combined, which actually isn't too bad considering this is a luxury, pretty big vehicle. Before we get in the interior, there are some important components of this car related to the Polestar trim, most notably the massive Brembo brakes behind the 19-inch wheels, painted in gold of course, along with the Öhlins dampers. These dampers are adjustable, and if you're familiar with high-end suspensions, Öhlins is a big player in this space. We'll talk more about these on the drive. Inside this Volvo V60, there is a lot to like, especially if you're a car enthusiast. But really where we should start here is with the build quality, which is excellent. This feels like I was talking about with German vehicles, kind of that European, very like solid feeling thing. Nothing rattles in here. It's all put together extremely nicely. There is a decent use of different materials, although they do have some piano black in here, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but outside of that, it's all very solid. It certainly feels a little more appropriate for that $72,000 price. Now, what does not feel appropriate for that price is frankly this infotainment. Not only are there just a lack of a lot of physical controls, which maybe you could get over if the screen functioned really well, but it's a little bit clunky to use. It feels dated. It also doesn't have things like wireless Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. You have to plug in for that kind of stuff. And when you're spending $72,000, you really would expect that kind of thing. So I just kind of find this infotainment a bit clunky, and it's a bummer that Volvo doesn't seem to have the resources to have a kind of state of the art, because everything else in here, as I've already mentioned, is really good. It has a digital display, which is just fine. Although another oddity that I've noticed on the technology front is the native Google Maps or maps that are just by default you have. It kind of just freezes on me sometimes and doesn't work. And then the fact that I don't have wireless Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, I can't see maps on the screen. So these are some things that you should look out for. I'm not saying they're going to be indicative of your ownership experience, but maybe they're just pre-production type things. Now, other highlights in here, the Bowers & Wilkes sound system sounds excellent. Good clarity once again for $72,000. This seems like very appropriate. other great things specifically for enthusiasts. Can we talk about gold or yellow, whatever you'd like to call it? Seat belts. Yes, give me more of those. Also, these seats, fantastic seats, specifically for enthusiast driving. They have a ton of support. They look cool. They have different textures on them. They are a little wide, so they will fit a wide range of people, but they do still hold you in pretty well, even though I'm a rather skinny fellow. Now, in the back seats, pretty good back there as well. Decent headroom for me at 6'1", as well as legroom. One oddity I've noticed, though, is the foot room, is I guess something I'll call it. This is something I've never noticed before, but like there's just not a lot of room for your feet under the seat in front of you when you're sitting in the back, which, like I said, I've reviewed a lot of cars and I've never noticed that before. I guess it's just how low they mount these seats to give you that kind of enthusiast driving position is maybe why you don't have a ton of foot room. Just something worth noting. Now let's try and throw a bike in the back of this thing before we take it on the road to see what it's like to drive. For the bike test, while this is a very usable wagon, it is still just that, not a SUV. Accordingly, the rear opening is a bit too small to fit my extra large frame mountain bike. The handlebars are just too wide, but I can just fit my hybrid road bike without taking the front wheel off, which is nice. As always, if you enjoyed the bike test and the rest of the video, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button and leaving a comment below so you don't miss future videos. The weather has turned on us here in Colorado, but that's okay because, as James May once said, when you design a Volvo, you design it for everything. So even though we're on a wet road, we're gonna probably experience some rain, probably some snow. It looks like there's some sun peeking through. We might experience dry roads. Doesn't matter. It's a Volvo. It can do all of it. And that's what's really interesting about this car is this thing is extremely unique, not just in the way it looks and the fact that it's a wagon and wagons are going away, but just the way it goes about its business is kind of like any other car or car manufacturer. In a lot of ways, it's similar to European cars, such as a German car, because it's very solid feeling, you know, the way it goes down the road. It's very composed at high speeds. It's very quiet. But, you know, things like the engine and transmission are, look out for these magpies. No, look out, magpies. Pretty birds. The engine and transmission are just very unlike something that like BMW would do. So let's get into that. This plug-in hybrid, of course, you have an electric motor or electric assist along with a turbocharged gas motor. So around town, at low speeds, feels really zippy. Even if you're in hybrid mode or electric mode, doesn't really matter. You kind of like barely put your foot down. Even what I'm doing right now, you barely put your foot down. It gives you this like instant shove of torque, and that's obviously the electric motor, right? But then there's this pause between, like, once you get deeper into the pedal, there's a pause because you're waiting for the engine and the turbo to kind of get going. And then there's another surge of power. So it's a bit odd that you get this initial torque right when you touch the pedal, which is nice throttle response. Bit of a delay, then power. And the power does come on. It's very significant. Like combined, of course, we're talking about over 450 horsepower and over 500 pound-feet of torque. And it feels like that. But weird in the way that it delivers that, like I said, because it feels like a kind of multi-stage process. Now, when I say this thing delivers power, in a closed course, I wanted to see how this compared to a friend's GT3, a properly fast car. And while the GT3 still does, of course, pull away, and I had no, false ideas that this was going to be able to beat a GT3 in a closed course, but it keeps up pretty darn well up until the kind of safety kind of becomes an issue. So this has to be different in German car markets or in Germany or something like that for the Autobahn. Once again, in a closed course, I discovered that this thing will only go to 112 miles an hour. That, of course, once again, safety conscious Volvo makes sense. But, if you get in on a track, say, maybe you take it to the track, like I was in a closed course, or you have some sort of unlimited potential for the car, it's kind of weird for a performance car to be limited to that mile an hour, especially when it's so quick otherwise. So let's go back to that safety bit, but before we move on from the engine, let's talk about transmission briefly here. Really nice 8-speed. It really, in some ways, kind of falls behind the scenes, which is really interesting. It really kind of feels like an electric car all the time because of how smooth and efficient and just like non-jerky this transmission is. It is so smooth, but it's also pretty quick. You know, it's not like a smooth old slush box transmission, which of course isn't jerky, but you know, takes forever to shift. This thing shifts up and down pretty quickly. You don't have a lot of control here, which is a bit of a bummer in a performance car, but overall, the way how smooth it is nice for a luxury experience. Now, back to the safety bit. You definitely feel the safety in the stability control and traction control as well. This car does not like to spin its tires in any way. It really cuts power very quickly. And that is once again at odds with the rest of this. Wow, look at this. We got some sun poking through. It's beautiful up here. It's at odds because these Öhlins dampers, up until the point that traction control kicks in, this thing handles so nicely. Like, this is exactly how I want my luxury performance sedan or wagon to be. If you're a car enthusiast, this will feel perfect because, yeah, it's a bit firm, and maybe regular passengers might think that, yeah, it is a touch firm, but it's just damped so well. It deals with imperfections well. It just doesn't get unsettled. Öhlins, I mean, they make fantastic products, and this is tuned very well by Polestar. It's just an excellent, makes for an excellent daily driver is what I'm trying to say, because you can come up here, you can have some fun. It corners really flat, it handles really well, but it doesn't beat you up around town. It's just like, it has a super solid feeling, as does the chassis. You know, it's a very rigid chassis. So, you know, all those things put together, coupled with things like, oh, here we go, we're getting in a little bit of snow. Good thing we got some good all seasons here. But the rest of these inputs are really good. Steering, effortless. Really nice, like direct. I say effortless because it just doesn't require a lot of BS, I'll say. Like, some of these cars, they really make the steering feel heavy in an attempt to make it have feel, but it just doesn't have feel. So Volvo's done a nice job there. The brakes here are actually pretty great. You know, maybe at low speed, there's slightly some awkwardness from handing off the regeneration to the brake pedal, but you get used to it really quickly. And man, up here, nice firm pedal. It's progressive. It doesn't give you all the brakes up front like some cars do and then fall away from you. It's just such a nice thing. Now, there are some qualms that I have. Two main. You know, I've already talked about the infotainment. Not a big fan of that, but coupled with the infotainment is the fact that these drive modes, they used to have a physical drive select here. Brilliant. Everyone loves physical buttons, especially for something that you want to do quickly. Like if I want to go from hybrid to pure or Polestar mode, like I want to do that quickly. It takes 3 presses of the screen to do that now. They've buried it in the screens here, and same thing, like if you want to hold an electric charge or put it into charge mode, whatever, 3 clicks or 3 presses of the screen. Not a good move, Volvo. Like, you took away that physical button, probably cost savings, but man, that would be really nice to have. I know the old cars had that, but the new ones do not. That's a bit of a bummer. And then really the other thing I've noticed driving this thing is the radar cruise control and kind of ADAS systems in order for, like, once you're on the highway, for it to kind of drive itself with supervision, your hand on the wheel, which works excellent when you can engage it. Sometimes it'll be a clear day, well-marked road on the highway, and it just, like, you try to engage the driver assistant, it just doesn't work, and I'm not sure why. And then 10, 15 seconds later, it works. Like, there's no cars around. I can't figure out what exactly it's waiting for, but slightly frustrating. Neither of which of these things, like I said, are deal breakers, but they are worth noting. And I do think the most annoying is the drive modes. If you are somebody who likes to customize your driving and tailor it towards what you're doing, you might find that frustrating. Now, that said, I've kind of kept this in hybrid mode, and it does a good job of like coming alive when you want it to. So not the end of the world, like I said. Very, very unique product here. No one has something like this. And I think the most interesting thing about Volvos is, specifically this car, it is like a 7 out of 10 for everything. Maybe 7.5 out of 10. Like, handles, 7.5 out of 10, really gets let down by the stability control. Power, really good, not the fastest thing ever, a little bit wonky at times. Fuel economy, really good. Comfort and quietness, pretty high level. Like, it does everything at a pretty high level. It's like that all-arounder. And that's why it makes sense to be a station wagon or a wagon, because now you can also haul stuff. This is the do-everything car. And I totally see, I'm not a big wagon guy. This is my first go in like a modern Volvo. And I see why people buy them, because you can't get this experience, frankly, anywhere else. It is unique. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It's been a rather pretty drive as we've kind of gained some elevation here, and they got quite a bit of snow up here. But hope you guys enjoyed it. If you made it this far in the video, thank you very much. Consider hitting that like and subscribe button, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Peace.